Hi, I'm Stephanie Jaworski of joyofbaking.com. Today we're going to make pecan shortbreads, and this is what they look like. They're really tasty. They're kind of buttery, crisp, and crumbly with an almost caramel flavor, and as you can see here, you can do them serve them plain or chocolate dipped. So the first thing we need to do is to toast our pecans. So preheat your oven to 350 degrees Fahrenheit or 180 degrees Celsius, and you will need 1 cup, that's 100 grams of pecans. And I'm using the whole ones, but you could just use the pieces of ones that you can buy because we're going to chop them anyways. And then just bake them in the oven for about 8 minutes until they're lightly brown. And you can always tell when nuts are done because you'll start to smell them, and that's when you know to take them out. And then let them cool completely and then just coarsely chop. So, when you make your batter, you can use a stand mixer like I have here, so use a paddle attachment, or you could use a hand mixer, or really, because this batter is so simple to make, we're just kind of mixing all the ingredients together. It's not about getting air into the batter. You could just use a bowl and a wooden spoon. So the first ingredient you need is 1 cup, that's 226 grams of butter at room temperature, and you can use salted or unsalted. Personally, I like to use the unsalted, so I can regulate the amount of salt myself, but either one, whichever one you like. And I'm just going to beat this on medium speed just until it's nice and creamy and smooth. Okay, and as always, just scrape down your bowl as much as you need to and your beater. So the next thing we're going to add is 2/3 of a cup of firmly packed light brown sugar. By weight, that's 145 grams. And if there's lots of lumps, sometimes with brown sugar there is, just kind of take your fingers and kind of get rid of that. And then along with 1 teaspoon of pure vanilla extract. A little flavoring there. And then I'm just going to mix that on medium speed for a minute or two, just until it's all mixed together. Okay, so as you can see here, it's all mixed together. Okay, and in a separate bowl, I have 2 cups, that's 260 grams of all-purpose flour, or you may know that as plain flour. And to that, I'm adding about 1/4 teaspoon of salt. If you use salted butter, then I would just leave out that salt. And then I'm going to add that. And then I'm going to just mix this. I'm going to start on very low speed because I don't want that flour coming up in my face. And then about halfway through mixing the flour in, I'm going to add that 1 cup, 100 grams of the chopped pecans. Okay, let's check that. Yeah, that looks good. Good thing about shortbread batter, it doesn't need a lot of mixing. There's not a lot of technique here, it's just mixing the ingredients together. So I'll just put it out on my... Okay, so now what I'm going to do is just roughly, I'm going to eyeball this. I mean, you could weigh it. I'm just going to cut it in half. That's about right. And then this is a little soft. It's pretty warm in this kitchen. So what I'm going to do, going to roll it out, but I'm just going to chill this just a little before we roll it out. So maybe like a half an hour, depending on how soft it is. Just wrap it up in plastic. Okay, so I'm going to put this in the fridge, and when I come back, I'll show you how to roll it out. So now I've chilled my shortbread, not till it's like really hard, but just till it's, you know, firm, maybe half an hour. And then what I'm going to do is roll it out between two pieces of parchment paper. You could use wax paper, or you could even use plastic wrap. And the reason I'm doing this is I used to make shortbread where you just put the flour on your counter and then roll it out, but the problem with that is you really got to know your shortbread dough. If it's too cold and hard, then it cracks. If it's too soft, then it kind of sticks, and then you're adding more flour, and then you end up with a tougher tasting shortbread. If you put it between like the parchment paper, then you're not adding any flour, and I find I can pop it back into the fridge if it gets too soft. It just makes things a lot easier. So now just put it like that, and then take your rolling pin. And what I'm going to do, mine's a little soft, you can just take your rolling pin like this, kind of softens it. And I'm going to roll this to about 1/4 of an inch, 1/2 centimeter, thereabouts. And what you want to do if you get wrinkles is just lift your parchment paper like that, and also kind of sometimes flip it over because you want nice and smooth. And when you think you have it to the right thickness, what I like to do is just always kind of rub my hand over it, and you can tell if it's an even thickness, because usually in the center it's a little thicker, or sometimes on the edges. Okay, so that's pretty good. No wrinkles, so I can just kind of peel it back. Looks good. Now, again, some people like to cut out their shortbread right now. What I'm going to do, because now this has gotten a little soft because I've been working it, I'm going to just take both pieces of parchment paper and just lift it onto a baking sheet, and then I'm going to chill this again. Get it nice and cold, I would say probably about 45 minutes, and that way it's going to be so easy to cut out our shortbread. So now I've chilled my shortbread, so I'm just going to peel that back, and then, I mean, you could use any shape of cookie cutter you want. I'm just using a round. This is about 2.5. I usually use 2.5 to 3 inch, 6 to 7 centimeters. And again, you can use any hearts or squares, whatever. And then, because this is nice and cold, see how easily? And then just have a parchment lined baking sheet ready. And I find this such an easy way to do my shortbreads. Okay, so I got 12 out of this. So there we have our shortbreads. And what I'm going to do is gather the scraps up and re-roll them, and then chill it and cut out the rest. But to this sheet, what I'm going to do is just, again, because I'm going to put this back into the refrigerator, so, while we preheat our oven to 350 degrees Fahrenheit, which is 180 degrees Celsius. So I'm going to chill these for maybe 15 minutes. And the reason I'm going to do that is make sure they're nice and cold so that when we bake them, they don't lose their shape. So now we're ready to bake our shortbreads. I bake mine for about 13 to 15 minutes, or until they're golden brown, like here. If you want them, and this will give you a shortbread with a nice crisp and crumbly texture. So depending, if you like a little softer shortbread, bake them a little less, but normally between 13 and 15 minutes. Okay, our pecan shortbreads are done. Don't they look gorgeous? Beautiful golden brown color. So now let them cool on a wire rack in the pan still for about 5 minutes because they're still quite soft and fragile. And then after that you can transfer them to a wire rack to finish cooling. Now, I most of the time just have my shortbread plain like that, but sometimes you like to, dress them up a little and dip them in melted chocolate. So I'm going to show you how to do that. So what you need is a saucepan of simmering water and some kind of heat-proof bowl. And you will need 6 ounces, that's 180 grams, of your favorite semi-sweet or bittersweet chocolate. Now what you're going to do, we're going to do what is called a quick temper method. I'm going to take 3 ounces, 90 grams of the chocolate, and just kind of, I have these round discs, but if you are using a chocolate bar, just cut it into smaller pieces. Put it over your saucepan, and then I'm just going to melt that. Okay, so our chocolate is now melted. So take it off the heat, and then what we're going to do is to the remaining 3 ounces, 90 grams of your chocolate, you want to finely chop it. As you can see I've done here. I've just used a knife. You could put it in your food processor and do it that way. And then I'm going to just pour it all into my melted chocolate and stir until it's all melted. Now you may say, why don't I just melt all the chocolate all at once? Which you can do, but I want to store my shortbreads, the chocolate dip ones, I want to store it at room temperature. And you can see here, the good thing about when we do a quick temper is, you can see it's not sticky, it's not tacky. What happens is if you just melt your chocolate all at once and dip your shortbread and then store it at room temperature, after a day they become kind of soft and tacky and they dull, the chocolate dulls, and it actually gets like a white film on it called a bloom. And that's because the chocolate is out of temper. Doing it this way, you don't have that. You have a beautiful looking chocolate dipped shortbread, which is what we want. And it really doesn't take that much longer to make it this way. Now when you dip your shortbreads, make sure they've cooled right down to room temperature. You don't want to dip a hot shortbread in chocolate. That won't work. So there we have it. It's nice and smooth. So to dip, I'm going to put it in like a smaller cup because I don't have that much chocolate and make it easier. Like I said, these are excellent. You do not need the chocolate. It's kind of just want something extra special. And you could just drizzle it over the top instead of dipping them like I've done. So just take your shortbread, and I'm just dipping it, maybe halfway, whatever you want. Or you can dip just the corners, and then just let it drip off. And I just kind of run against the edge. And then just put it on a parchment or wax paper, aluminum foil, baking sheet, and just keep doing that. And then what I do, just to harden that chocolate really fast, just pop them into the fridge for, 5-10 minutes, and you have chocolate dipped pecan shortbreads. Now these will store, a week. If you don't chocolate dip them, they'll last longer. You can just freeze them. They are so good, and I'm going to try one. I'm going to just try the plain. Oh. Buttery crisp, crumbly. The brown sugar and the pecans kind of gives it almost a caramel flavor. A really nice cookie. So enjoy. And until next time, I'm Stephanie Jaworski of joybaking.com.